Well, what else? He's untrappable. He eats vegetables. He lives in the river. We know what this is. It's not an elephant, not a hippopotamus. Oh, but we're not done. There's another one coming. Look at this one. Can you pull in the Leviathan? What does Leviathan mean? It just means huge animal that lives in the water. Can you pull him in with a fish hook or tie down his tongue with a rope? Can you put a cord through his nose? This is sarcasm. Or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he keep begging you for mercy? Will he speak to you with gentle words? Will he make an agreement? I believe God actually sounded like this when he said, I'm serious. We often don't read scripture like it sounds, people. Will he make an agreement with you for you to take him as your slave for life? Can you make a pet of him like a bird? Or put him on a leash for your girls? Will traders barter for him? Will they divide him up amongst the merchants? Job, are you in charge of the universe? No, sir. And he goes further. Can you fill his hide with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? Or if you lay a hand on him, you'll remember the struggle and never do it again. Any hope of subduing him is false. The mere sight of him is overpowering. No one is fierce enough to rouse him. Who then is able to stand against me? NIV textual note. Possibly an alligator. Okay. Can you fill an alligator's hide with harpoons? Yes. Will traders trade them? Yes. Any hope of subduing him is false. No one is fierce enough to rouse him. You can rouse an alligator. For $5 in Florida, a guy named Bubba will stick his head in there. Florida's a fascinating place, I tell you. Home of the newlywed and the nearly dead. That's just... I got more to say, but I'm not going to. Let's look at this alligator theory, shall we? Verse 12. I shall not fail to speak of his limbs, his strength, and his graceful form. Oh, we got to stop here. When you see an alligator, are his limbs what you think of? Graceful limbs. Oh boy, people have come up to me at the break and they'll say, it's amazing, your family, what you do. It's kind of amazing, but we don't think of it. It's just what we do. My son's not aware that what he does is strange. I've got the only 12-year-old in the world that watches a crocodile hunter and goes, sissy. Down, boy. It is interesting, but no, we're not afraid of those. Who can strip off his outer coat? Can you do that with an alligator? Yes, you can. So it's not him. Who dares opens the door of his mouth? Bubba in Florida. Ringed about with his fearsome teeth. His back has rows of shields. Hang about. When God says something once, it's important. When he keeps repeating it, there's a reason why. Watch this. Rows of shields, tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between. They are joined fast to one another. They cling together and cannot be parted. Hang on, getting a message here. The random bumps on the back of an alligator is not going to do this. You know a stegosaur? Know the double row? It wasn't. We used to think it was. By the way, this is not bad science. The guy found all these plates. Remember, fossils are found usually smashed. When he put it together, he had to arrange the plates somehow. We have now found better stegosaur skeletons. And the ones we've found that are intact have one row jammed tightly against the other, so no air could pass between them. Job got it right 3,000 years ago. Actually, 3,500 years at least ago. And we're just now figuring it out. I wonder what Job saw. Now, was this a stegosaur or one of the plesiosaurs or the like? Not sure which one it is. We don't really have enough evidence to say this is what it is. But what we do know is that this is some kind of a dinosaur. This is no alligator, friends, because, once again, we're going to come back to verses 18, 19, and 20 and 21. Let's go to verse 22. Strength resides in his neck. Do alligators have a neck? It's rather like an NFL football player. Nobody knows. The folds of his flesh are tightly joined, are firm and immovable. His chest is as hard as a rock, hard as a lower millstone. Alligators' bellies are soft and squishy. You can tickle them. It's inadvisable, but you can tickle them. When he rises up, the mighty are terrified. Now, an alligator can jump a little, but it's pushing it to say rises up. He goes farther. The sword that reaches him has no effect, nor does the spear or the dart or the javelin. Iron he treats like straw and bronze like rotten wood. Arrows do not make him flee. Stones are like chaff to him. A club seems to him but a piece of straw. He laughs at the rattling of the lance. Again, this is no alligator. And look at the next, this will end it for you. His undersides are jagged potsherds, leaving a trail in the mud like a threshing sledge. The underside of an alligator is smooth. But many of these sea-dwelling dinosaurs, when they pulled themselves across land, left fossilized tracks, and their belly left trenches because of the jagged nature of their undersides. Just like Job says. Going further, he makes the depths churn like a boiling cauldron and stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. Behind him he leaves a glistening wake. One would think that the deep had white hair. This is no alligator. This is a dinosaur. Now let's go back and have a look here at these verses that I said we're going to skip for a minute. Verse 18. His snorting throws out flashes of light. His eyes are like the rays of dawn. Firebrands stream from his mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from his nostrils as from a boiling pot over a fire of reeds. His breath sets coals. Yes, Lord, we're getting it. They keep saying it. Sets coals ablaze and flames dart from his... Are we talking about a fire-breathing dragon here? Well, my response is, why not? For example, the Diplodocus has a skull that has several things in the skull, chambers, and tubes connecting them that come down to the nose and the mouth that we can't figure out what they were. The current theory for many is that they enhanced his sound. So instead of just going, it's like, that kind of thing. It's a theory, and theories are theories. However, I find it interesting that we don't believe in anything until we find it. Science also told us that there were no giant pandas till we found one. They told us the coelacanth was gone for 30 million years before we found out fishermen who didn't know that kept catching them and eating them. We were told a lot of things didn't exist that did. Also, why is it that every culture has a story of a fire-breathing dragon? Where'd that come from? Where'd the stories of Beowulf come from? Where'd the snake-like dragons of Asia come from? Why is it that we all have these stories? Where did the stories come from? They are remarkably similar. How about this? If you had never heard of the bombardier beetle, would you have believed that it existed? For those of you who have not heard of it, interesting little creature. It's like a cockroach that's armed. Yeah, that's all you need. They're packing heat. Literally. You see, they have in their backside, he said nicely, in their backside, they have mixing chambers that have two gases. If you put these two gases together, it will explode. It's very important that these gases not be put together. I often wonder, how did he evolve that? And how many times did it take to get it right? All right, kids, I'm going to go for a 20-30 mix. All right. Scratch that one off. It's your turn, Herbert. I don't want to go. Anyway, I don't know why all animals are English. Maybe it's because I did my doctorate over there. Whatever it is. So they have these, quit distracting me. They have these two mixing chambers in the back. When they sense a threat, they send the gases, mix them together in a third chamber. Why don't they blow up, I hear you cry? Because they add a third chemical that's an explosive inhibitor. You gotta get that timing just right. But they do. And then instantaneously, they heat this to well over 200 degrees in their body. Instantaneously. And when it gets up well over 200 degrees, they expel it from their body while adding a fourth chemical which removes the inhibitor, so explosive hot gas goes in the face of whatever tried to eat them, which normally will put you right off your lunch. How long did that take to evolve? Interesting little weaponry, isn't it? And if you had never heard of this, would you have believed it? No, but it's true. What if you'd never heard of an electric eel and we started telling you about a thing which is really a fish, but it looks like a snake, and it lives in salt water, but when it bites you, it can put thousands of volts through you. It can kill creatures, yet it doesn't get shocked itself, even though it's in the sea where it's putting the electricity through. You'd be going, yeah, right. But we know about electric eels. The only reason we don't talk about fire-breathing dragons is because someone told us that they never existed. Yet my question is, how do we know that when every culture tells us they did? Every culture. Even in the frozen north, they speak of that. Also, Isaiah speaks of a Leviathan as something which still lives. In Isaiah 27, verse 1, for example, as a fearful creature that still lives in the sea. The psalmist mentions Leviathan several times, predominantly in Psalm 104, verses 25 and 26. This creature was still around. Well then, how did they survive the flood? They went on the ark. Wait a minute, I hear you cry. A big brontosaurus on the ark. No, Noah wasn't an idiot. Reptiles, dinosaurs, fall into this big classification. Something interesting about them. They're born small. They get bigger as you feed them, as long as they live. The average dinosaur, by the way, was the size of a German Shepherd dog. They weren't all of them big. That's a myth. Now, when they're born, they're much, much smaller. It's easy to bring them on an ark, and people have done the math on this so many times, and shows that there's enough room for them all. And how about all the food they'd need? You don't feed them very much. They go into sleep. They don't grow. It makes a lot more sense. Well, then why don't we still have them? First of all, we might. We've not been in everywhere yet. You're aware of that? There's some jungles in Africa we still haven't been able to get through. And you hear noises over there. You don't know what it is, but we've still not been able to get through. It is, some of the world's pretty hard to get around, and a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of New Guinea is still, a lot of Asia, very difficult to get into. Well, with dinosaurs, when they come out of the ark, what do they find? The greenhouse is gone. The world that was perfect for them is gone. Their food supply is way down. It's not their world anymore. After a while, they would start to die out. Cold would kill them. In Antarctica, as you dig, you find dinosaur bones everywhere. How did a cold-blooded creature live in Antarctica? Well, the answer is that it didn't used to be cold. But the flood came. It's changed everything. And it changed it for the animals as well. How long did it take them to die out? Like I said, most scientists will tell you, don't say they're all gone, because we don't know. Think about this. There are cave paintings, properly drawn dinosaurs. A brontosaur that's really an apatosaur with the right head on it. How did they know? A stegosaurus with one row of plates down its back. How did they know? The Native Americans did petroglyphs, carvings in the rocks, showing hunting dinosaurs. How did they know? There are tracks, fossilized tracks of humans and dinosaurs together in several places in the world. There are also tracks of carts and dinosaur tracks in the same place. Down in Texas, just outside of Austin, is the latest discovery on that. And they're having real trouble with it. These cart tracks are 36 inches apart, never varied, dead straight, about 1.5 inches wide. And dinosaur tracks come and don't go down quite as far as the cart, which meant they came around later than the cart. And one scientist is trying to put forth the theory that these were snakes. Straight snakes. Synchronized snaking. Synchronized swimming. Friends, what a sport. And if my daughter's correct, if one of them drowns, did the rest have to? I don't know. But the stories of Beowulf, the stories of Gilgamesh, Herodotus, the father of history, speaks of them as still living in parts of the world and describes some accurately. Alexander the Great's army stopped when they reached India and turned around. What made them stop? Alexander wanted to go farther. What made the army that would never back up turn and go home? In Alexander's writings and those of his soldiers, it talks about they met with people who worshipped huge hissing lizards that lived in caves, and the lizards terrified them to the point they said they'd go no farther. What was it that would frighten Alexander's army? We'll never know, but I find that interesting. On and on. In the 10th century, an Irishman wrote a detailed account of an encounter with a beast that frightened him so much he went to the monastery and they wrote down his account. He described the stegosaur exactly right, even with the one row of plates on his back. We also have in the 1500s a European science book that says and draws a few correctly. And then Aldrovanus in 1572 in Italy records an incident between a peasant who was so frightened he ran to Aldrovanus, who was a noted scientist of the day, to tell him what had happened to him and ask him if he had seen a demon. And Aldrovanus didn't know, but he drew it, and we now know it's a Tanistopheus, a smaller dinosaur. It looks exactly right. We have the fossils. Remember, a lot of times people say things are not around and they are, like Komodo dragons. If you got a lizard that can be 12 feet long, they say they used to grow to 30 feet, but I don't know that that's true. 12 feet long, can outrun a horse, and has a poisonous bite. Let's just call it a dinosaur. Maybe its hip socket isn't exactly correct, but I'm not going to argue with the Komodo dragon. And even today, scientific publications are warning their readers that dinosaurs are not yet extinct because we've not been everywhere, like the Japanese fishing vessel that caught the plesiosaur in the 70s. If you've never seen that picture, it's on the web, and it's a fascinating picture. I've seen it before. I saw it in the 70s. It looks like what people say the Loch Ness Monster would look like if she existed. And it's there for quite a while until they couldn't stand the rotting smell anymore. They cut some of the flesh away and let it go. They took the flesh in, had it analyzed, and it was reptilian. There are no large reptiles in the ocean, are there? There were in the 70s. On and on we go. The lesson for Job is found in Job 41, verses 10 and 11, and that is that God's in charge of all things. I got to end this because you've got a life to live. But I want to let you see that. Why is it that they say dinosaurs died out 65 million years? It's very simple. 65 million years before we showed up. Very simple. It's because that's what their theory says. There is